on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
You know, I remember in 2003, I said I would be a volunteer because my husband was in the Marine Corps at the time and he was being deployed to Iraq. And I needed something to do to keep my mind off of things. And that's how I started. And I never thought that, I would just keep moving along on the volunteer role. And I joked that I said it's kind of full circle. I came back to where I started and have had a ball. So.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sorority Chat. Today's guest is Nikki Johnson, and she is the House Corps president at the Delta Beta chapter of Delta Gamma, which is on the campus of the University of Kentucky. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you, Liz. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm really excited to have you on here. I always love talking to you, but I think it'll be even better today doing it in more of an official capacity.
Yes.
So I introduced you as the House Corps Board president, but we both know there's a whole lot more to your role there. Like right now, you are acting as interim House director, right?
That is correct. I have been here since the middle of October. What we thought was just going to be filling in for a couple of weeks and has turned into staying through the spring semester. So it's definitely a change being with these women every day versus just for meetings.
Yeah, right. Back to your college days, living in the house with them, the meals, everything.
Exactly. They definitely have much better meals than we did in the late 90s when I lived here.
I believe that. And I loved my meals. I was there 01 to 05, not at Delta Gamma, but at the University of Kentucky. And I remember thinking like, this is amazing. Somebody cooks my food for me. It's not my mom. And I can just walk in the door and eat it and go about my business.
Exactly. And it's amazing to me to see, the difference from what we thought was such an amazing, getting to have lunch with your friends every day and dinner and somebody cooks it for you and makes you breakfast, all those good things, to now, these professionally trained chefs who deal with food sensitivities and allergies and everyone's different likes and dislikes and the fresh salad bar every day that they get, or the truly, handmade, last week they had orange chicken for dinner one night and chef cut up all the chicken himself, breaded it all, baked it, made the sauce from scratch. It was, definitely much different than what we thought was healthy 25 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's evolved overall, right? Just in general. So I hear that. Now, this chapter was where you were, right? This was your chapter in college?
Yes, this is my chapter of initiation. I initiated in the fall of 1996. And so I just have kind of always been involved as an alumna and just started my 23rd year as a volunteer, I believe. So,
do I call you a glutton for punishment or just a very dedicated volunteer?
Yes.
Both. All of the above, right?
All of the above.
Well, so what I wanted to really get into today was you just finished leading this particular chapter in the teardown and rebuild of the chapter house. So it's rather comical now that you are getting to live in the facility that you helped create and see through the vision. So I don't know if it, again, is positive, negative, if it's all of the above, but that's where you are now. And so a lot of the work that you did took place during the pandemic and during, we rode a roller coaster of emotions and prices. And so I just want to talk about that, talk about what it is to be a volunteer leading a project like that. And then also what your experience was. So kind of start from the beginning. What led the House Core Board to say, okay, we need to do something here. We want to scrap this facility and start fresh?
Right. So back in, probably 2018, 2017, the board at the time started talking about it. We need to do some renovations. The original house was built in 1964 and didn't even have air conditioning. We know what Kentucky's are like in August, what Kentucky's like in August.
Very sweaty.
Living in the house without air conditioning was just not appealing to anyone. And just needed a refresh. She was tired.
Yeah.
She needed some love, and they started talking about a renovation. UK has done this fantastic Greek park area with so many new houses, and just has really tried to make a space for all of the Greek organizations to kind of be right there together.
Yes.
So there was some discussion by the previous board on what it would take, things like that. I termed off as a fraternity director on the international level in 2019, and the board asked me if I would come back and be the House Corp president. So I thought, why not? One House corporation will be much easier than 147.
Yep.
Sure. Sounds
in theory.
It sounds great. We embarked on a capital campaign feasibility study that fall, 2019, and actually signed our contract for our capital campaign 2 weeks before COVID shut everything down in 2020. So at the time, we were still looking at just a renovation. $4.5 million, I think, was kind of around the plan. The original house had a basement and 2 stories. We were going to kind of take it down to the studs and make her beautiful inside again. So went through all of that. We chose contractors with the university. Started talking about design plans, and I know that you and Erica were on some of those early calls with us with UK. And when it came to opening bids that day, for them to choose the contractor for us, we were over 60% over budget on their bids.
Yikes.
Very yikes. We kind of took a step back and regrouped and determined that filling in the basement and starting from the ground up was going to be a more financially feasible option for us. Still would not get us in that $4.5 million budget. We were about $3 million over that when all was said and done. But they have a brand new, beautiful house, and we were terrified that first year probably.
Yeah.
Will our donors still support us? Will they still think this is a good idea? What will we do if women can't live in the house post-COVID? It was a rocky few months for the board. So
I believe it. I believe it. And yes, what I did not say at the beginning was that my team had the pleasure of working on this renovation with you, and we had worked on this facility previously a couple of times. We had kind of worked in phases. Did the living room and like a little adjacent sitting room, worked on the basement, hang out, study, TV space. And so it was a pleasure to then get to see it all the way through, to have it completely reimagined, even though there were a lot of hiccups for you all along the way.
There were. And, I learned a lot in my previous roles as a volunteer. Thankfully, I had some experience working with a large university and new construction, and how much different that is than private construction.
Yeah.
Being on UK's campus, we went the route where they own this house, just because of where our lot sits. And we were essentially a state project. Had to be approved before the General Assembly, and all the requirements that UK has, all of their from the brick color to every little detail how sensitive the fire alarms are, which was a learning experience this year. So it has, I've learned a lot. I said more than I thought I would ever know about architecture or construction or anything like that. Thankfully, we had some really amazing people on the House Corporation Board we had a few people who oversaw the capital campaign. We had another person who was on the design committee with me and worked with the university who kept me sane a lot of days. Sweet Janie, I think, went above and beyond and helped pack up the house.
Right.
Get all that stuff moved out into storage. And, and the rest of the board just kind of picked up the day-to-day things because we still had those things going on. The house was still here. So while we were figuring out what the plans were, we still had a house to oversee. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? Everything doesn't shut down. Operations don't stop just because you're planning something for the future. You had to maintain the women currently living there, everything going on, and be planning all of this, going down the road. So it was a lot to juggle all at once. And so you made a really good point that having a number of volunteers and board members to share the work, that old adage, many hands make light work, came into play here for you, right?
It did. It definitely did. And, the alumni, even those who are not on the board that stepped up to be on the campaign committee and to be leaders, era leaders or decade chairs or something like that. We couldn't have done it without them. There is no way that our board of, I think it was 8 of us at the time, not including our collegians, could have done all this work without people kind of stepping up for small projects, short-term things that they could fit into their schedule.
Yeah, totally. Now, you said decades chair. What does that mean exactly?
So we identified one person for basically each decade who kind of oversaw the era chairman who had kind of a group of 3 or 4 years of alumni. And that's who they would reach out to. They kind of targeted their own pledge classes, the people that were in the chapter around them, networked those friends that they still kept in touch with and those sisters that they were still close to, make a donation, make a difference, and have some fun, get that contact back together.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So, if you were from 94 to 98, you may go back and reach out to those sisters, and then somebody kind of headed up the 90s section, the 80s section. That's what you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. You said eras, and then it made me realize I'm using one of my favorite mugs, which is a Taylor Swift nod. This is a lot going on at the moment, which is also very apropos for you and this conversation.
It is.
Oh, Lord. Always something going on, right?
That's right. It has been fun. I think in November of 22, the days all run together now, is when we finally got to pull that trigger and demolish the house. And watching the house come down, bit by bit, till there was nothing but this hole in the ground that's when it really started to make a difference. That's when you thought, okay, now this project is finally coming true. We've talked it to death. We've planned it to death. Now we're finally seeing the progress of things.
Some kind of action instead of just the hypotheticals at that point. Yes, I can imagine. And then I also remember several conversations. So you've talked about you started thinking about this in 2020 or writing, signed the contract, and then you talked about the end of 2022. So if people just think about how long that is, but then there were a lot of ups and downs in there, right? Because we kept sending off for pricing of plans. Materials would come back, and the fluctuation in the pricing of materials was insane. Like the way that it would come back in over budget, even when we would think, okay, now we're ready to proceed.
Right. And that was such a big driving factor between, the renovation and new construction. Our biggest hurdle with renovation was the basement and we needed to excavate the basement further to have more space. The cost of steel had gone from $5,000 or $6,000 a ton to over $30,000 a ton.
Right.
And it was just that final hit of there's no way we can afford this project this way.
Mm-hmm.
Filling in that basement, starting from the ground floor, stick and frame construction like your own houses and so many other houses on campus now was just the way to go. So.
Yeah, that was the call that stood out to me the most, was the call about the steel pricing. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I could see everyone else's faces, like I think everyone's like probably stroking out at the moment to hear those numbers go up. Because that's not an easy call up an alum and say, hey, can you help us fill in this gap? Like you're talking millions upon millions of dollars difference. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And we were so lucky. We raised just under $1.2 million.
That's great.
In our campaign. And besides our collegiate chapter, who obviously, had more skin in the game than anybody, our largest donor was only $75,000. And I say only, that was a huge, amazing, we had a couple at that level, but we're not talking $1 million donors, $250,000 donors. These are, $500, $1,000, $5,000 that just add up and add up and add up.
Yeah.
And I think if we hadn't had such a great team on the campaign committee and had done such a good job the previous few years of letting the alumni know what was going on with the chapter, keeping them informed of the great things that the chapter was doing on campus, they would not have been invested in this project at all.
No, you bring up a good point. And I think talking about the types of donors that you had, talking about the way that you kept alumni engaged with the current chapter is so pertinent for someone listening who maybe is planning a future project, because those are really key things to point out and to understand that will play into the success of a renovation or a new build like this.
Exactly. If our alumni didn't know that, one year the chapter had won Outstanding Greek Chapter of the Year, whatever the awards were, or how big the new member classes were getting, things like that. Everybody wants to know those little things. They want to see that the chapter is still thriving, even after they're not there.
Yeah, it brings out a sense of pride. It evokes that pride. And you can't just flip a switch overnight and educate everyone on this. It's like a slow build and a constant communication that has to happen in order to support a project like this.
Right. I think they had done... I think we required them to do at least 2 years of just kind of outreach newsletters to their alumni before they even considered a campaign. And it definitely had its benefits.
Yeah, that's good. Now, am I remembering correctly, did you work on staff at Delta Gamma headquarters at one point?
So I did not. I have always been a volunteer.
Okay.
I started in this role as House Corporation President in 2003. That was my very first DG volunteer role, and moved on to our regional team level. So I worked with chapter administrations, presidents, a couple of the vice presidents for 13 chapters, and then we divided it up a little further, so I got down to 8 chapters in Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, North Carolina, that kind of area.
Okay.
And then moved on to the housing side of things. So I worked with our house corporations here in our region, and then we relocated to Texas for a few years. And the same time that we moved, I was asked to be a fraternity director. So I worked with our regional housing specialists who worked with every house corporation in their region. So we had 147 house corporations at one point that, were ultimately fell under my umbrella on an administrative side. And then I moved over to the housing development side and worked with all of our groups who were doing renovations, capital campaigns, new construction, all that good stuff. I think at one point we had 13 that were doing some sort of project. of, at least $500,000 or more. So it was a big boom for several years.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it. Did you have any idea, like, the stepping stones that those roles would be to get you to culminating at this project?
I remember in 2003, I said I would be a volunteer because my husband was in the Marine Corps at the time, and he was being deployed to Iraq. And I needed something to do to keep my mind off of things.
I'm sure.
And that's how I started. And I never thought that, I would just keep moving along on the volunteer role. And, I joked that I said it's kind of full circle. I came back to where I started and have had a ball. So.
Well, I think that's great. It's a sweet story. And you're right. I mean, it is very full circle. And obviously you enjoy what you're doing with the organization. Do you have like a favorite standout memory from any of your volunteer time, or I guess even collegiate?
Sure. So I will say, and I tell the women in the chapter this all the time, we have what we have called the Beach Squad. And there are 6 of us, Delta Gammas, who all met volunteering in the housing realm. 3 of us are in our mid to late 40s, and the other 3 are in their early or late 70s.
Okay.
And we all volunteered at the same time, so we all got to know each other, and we all just clicked. It's been probably close to 10 years since we were all on the team together.
Okay.
And we get together once a year. We have our group text message that goes nonstop during the day. And it really promotes, it really makes you realize how valuable your experience as an alumna is and being involved as an alumna. I didn't know any of these women. None of us went to the same school. None of us even live in the same state. We're from Boston to Phoenix spread out.
Wow.
So it's really fun. I tell the women in the chapter today, I said, yes, these women that you live with may be your best friends for life. I said, but when you volunteer, you may make your other best friends, and they become just as important.
Yeah, that is so true. You don't realize it when you're kind of at that college level or even high school, just the way that adult friends are different and also amazing, and the way that you can connect with folks through volunteerism and other things.
Exactly. And they've all been, a couple of them have been through renovations and constructions and things at their local levels also. One has worked on the House Corporation at Arizona State, and then one was on the House Corporation at Arkansas when we recolonized and built there. So they were good sounding boards for me as we went through this process.
Yeah, I bet.
And good resources of, hey, where did those bunk beds come from? That I could send to you all and say, this is kind of what we think we like. So, being able to have that network of sisters and friends to reach out to that have had that experience as well has just been even more fun.
I'm sure. And back to what you said about Janie keeping you sane, I'm sure having that group of women also helped keep you sane to share, like, this is what to expect. And much like you sharing your knowledge right now just with someone who's listening, who's like, oh, thank God she told me that, because now I know what to expect in this project. You never know where you might get those little tidbits of wisdom.
Exactly. And for me, volunteering has always been, and this sounds awful, it's been my girly thing.
Sure.
We only have one child. We have a son. And so it's always been men in my house. So volunteering was my girl time. And, having something fun to do that wasn't football or military related. So
yeah, something a little softer, maybe.
A little softer.
But now, do you still advise for a men's organization? I seem to remember you doing something like that not long ago.
I do. So, I'm just a glutton for punishment,
I
evidently.
think you just like to do a lot of good,
Just
right?
have
Delta Gamma
trouble
motto.
saying no, I guess.
So talk more about that kind of level of
Sure.
volunteerism.
So in 2022, my husband is a Phi Kappa Psi
Okay.
member, and they were recolonizing on campus here at UK.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been gone for about 6 or 8 years. And he was asked to come on board as one of their advisors.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said yes. He'd always seen me doing this. And he said, I've kind of got the time now. I'll do it. So he was really involved in their colonization process their first year. And the following summer, he was mobilized by the Army and was going to be in DC for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other advisors on the team and one of their headquarters staff reached out to me and said, would you consider being an advisor for them? I was like, okay, why not?
Sure.
Something different.
Yeah.
I haven't done this before. Something different. So I have been, their colony advisor for about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And we actually have their chartering ceremony in a couple of weeks, which is exciting.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Full-fledged chapter again on campus. It has definitely been a learning experience. I told them from the beginning, I said, my experiences in housing and working with collegiate women's, there's not a lot that surprises me. You're not going to tell me a lot that I'm going to be like, whoa, guys, are you kidding me? So far, they really haven't. They're like any 18 to 22-year-old group of men. I said a couple of weeks ago, let's remember your frontal lobes are not completely formed, so you're going to make stupid decisions. But we're going to learn from them, and as long as no one was hurt and nothing was damaged, then we can move past them. But it has definitely been a different experience. I have learned, I think as women's organizations, we are so much more organized and our policies are so much more clear. What's expected, all of those good things. Men's fraternities might struggle with that a little bit sometimes.
A little looser, we'll say.
A little looser. Yeah. Don't necessarily have, based just because of sizes, don't necessarily have all of the staff that some of the women's organizations do at their headquarters. So that's been a learning curve. It has definitely been an experience to navigate the university's Greek life process from a fraternity side versus a sorority side. And, they've been wonderful to work with, getting them on, making sure they stay on track and stay involved and, become part of the community on campus and things like that. But it is definitely a lot different. There are 300 women in the chapter here for Delta Gamma, and there are 27 men in this fraternity. So I sometimes have to think, okay, they're not gonna have the same experiences and do all those same things, and that's okay. And this is what they want it to be. But yeah, it was definitely, I thought, oh, guys, this will be easy. A men's group, this will be so easy. And I've learned a lot from them.
I would say the colonizing part is also different than running an established, or advising, I should say, an established chapter as well. There's probably some big differences.
Yeah, there is. And, they're held to the same rules and expectations as any other established chapter, on campus and within their organization. But you're also still really working hard to build that groundwork, that that first group of men who are going to shape the future for what this chapter looks like down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And watching them kind of find their, we talked about finding their why.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you want to join this group versus another one? What did you bring to the table? What do you see in the future, leaving behind for the organization to be able to grow, and kind of seeing that come to light a little bit, and see them figure out, oh, this is what we want to be known for. We want to be known that we're smart, we're friendly, we're nice guys. We're not just a big group of athletes all from one town, or, we don't do all of the crazy parties, but we still know how to have a good time and balance that. Not get in trouble for it.
That's pretty important.
That's the important thing.
Gotta follow the rules, everybody.
Gotta follow the rules.
Well, they're very fortunate to have you. What's your favorite part about working with them?
I think my favorite part is just they want to do things the right way. Mm-hmm. And they want to ask questions, and they want to learn, and they're, sometimes they're funny. They texted me, a couple of weeks ago and said, oh, we're going to come serenade the DG girls Monday night at dinner. And, they get excited about the little things.
Oh, still. I love it.
That, I think some of, groups that have been established a long time, or the larger groups on campus, kind of take for granted a little bit. Mm-hmm. But they're excited about those things. They want to make those connections and leave a legacy. So.
Oh, I think that's so great.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so if somebody were to come to you and ask for advice because their chapter was going to be starting a renovation or a new construction project, what would be a challenge and a success story that you would share with them?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So a challenge, I think for a lot of groups, the challenge is not spreading yourself too thin. Mm. I think, knowing that you have enough people on board to help take some of the burden off of you as a president is the biggest thing. Remembering that the operations day-to-day things are still going to be going on. And depending on your structure with your executive offices or your headquarters or whatever, you still have bills to pay. You still have employees to oversee, all of those good things that still happen day to day. If the house is still open, what happens if there's a plumbing issue? Hopefully your house director is capable of handling those things, but not spreading yourself so thin, building yourself a good team on your board that's willing to step up and share some of that burden with you. And for me, I was lucky. I was really lucky to have that team. It took a lot for me to give up some of it, but I knew that I couldn't do it all as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
And still live the rest of my life. But I think that's always the biggest challenge. I think a lot of times as volunteers, we're so programmed to say, yes, we can do it. Yes, we can take care of that. That's no problem. But realizing that you have to have the people there to support you to be able to get those things done is one of the biggest challenges. And, a success is, I think, finally seeing things, come to fruition. Like I said, when the house was demolished, that was really that, oh, okay, I can take a little bit of a breath. Things ran really smoothly the first 9 or 10 months. Until things went behind schedule. But, knowing those things are going to happen and you don't necessarily have control over them, being able to let go and trust the contractors or the project manager or whoever you have, kind of going to bat for you is definitely something that you need, without, a lot of times we get questioned on well, why did you hire someone to do the interiors? Why didn't you all just do it yourself? I mean, there's an alum and she loves to decorate and she could have done it. That's possible, but that's another thing to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And so turning it over to you all and saying, you all know us, you know what our campus culture is like. Here's what it's going to be. Please just give me a couple of options.
Mm-hmm. Take this off my plate.
Off of us. Yeah, took that off of our plate.
Yeah.
And being able to have that trust that you all were going to, come up with something fabulous for us.
Oh, I appreciate that. It was always a pleasure to work with you all. But you make a really good point. When you kind of hire that out, then that takes that off of you, that stress off of you. It's not something else to manage. There's so much value in getting a professional who understands specifically this type of environment, no matter what it is, if it's the architect, the contractor, the designer, whatever. This is a specialized space, and there's some specific needs that have to be met there.
It really is. I mean, even little things, I thought I'd never see girls get so excited about the nugget ice machines.
I don't know. I know a lot of adults that get really excited about that too.
I mean, I was too, the nugget ice machines and the 4 washers and dryers in the laundry rooms. But those little things are, there were these wonderful touches that the women appreciate and that may not have been thought of otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I still say our laundry room is one of my favorite rooms in the house, just because I love the blue washers and dryers and the fun wallpaper.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just a nice space. And you think of a laundry room as being kind of dingy.
Absolutely.
And, so that's one of the things our alumni always comment on if they come to see the house. They're like, oh my gosh, look at this laundry room. I want one like this at home. It's amazing. Look at the wallpaper. Like,
yep.
I know.
Yep. But I mean, I tell people that all the time. Like, if we're working on a residential project, I'm like, people hate doing laundry. You hate going in there. So, like, let's make the space something fun and happy. Like, if you're really into wallpaper, let's put some cool wallpaper in there so you're happy when you're folding clothes, or paint the walls yellow, do whatever. And so, yes, I loved the blue machines in there, the pink wallpaper. It's so fun. It's very on brand for Delta Gamma. And that's funny that it's just a place that people go and comment.
I know, it really is. That, I think the rest of the house is just so calm, and the girls love to sit downstairs. They all pile up on the couch and watch The Bachelor on Monday nights, or, do whatever. But kind of having something, that little pop of fun color in there, that pop of fun wallpaper in the guest bathrooms. They just, they're like, oh, this is so cute. It's just, these nice little surprises behind the door. So,
well, that's good. I'm glad. And I know that initially when the house opened, no one was living in. It was just kind of a communal hangout space. Mm-hmm. And so they've been able to, move in now and live in the space. So I'm glad to hear that they're enjoying it and that the fruits of all of your work and the board's work are being realized.
It has been fun. I said, I think it's kind of perfect almost that I've been able to live in the house for a few months, because I can see the things that, okay, this was, as you can see in the wall behind me, the TV is not hung there. It got moved to a different spot because it just wasn't working there. Mm-hmm. It's great on paper, but didn't work out in reality.
Yep.
Or, once we realized in the dining room we needed a few more shelves or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Warranty runs out on the house this weekend. So it's been nice to be able to be here and say, oh, I think we need to have this checked out before the warranty ends, or different things like that. So,
you make a good point, just getting in there and kind of tying up all of those loose ends. And that's not something people think about, right? They finish the project and they're like, wipe their hands, I'm out.
Done. It's that, until, it's like you said, when we opened in last March, no one was living in, and the women didn't move in until August. And so they really had the fall semester and this last month to work out the kinks of the house. What's working? What's, where do they want something placed differently? Or, we had this wonderful closet built with the intention of all the folding chairs for chapter meeting being in it. And the reality is they don't pull the chairs out of the closet on the carts to set them up for chapter meetings. So, let's make better use of that closet. Storage is always needed.
Storage is a premium.
Go back to the storage unit. So, just being able to live in it and let them figure out what works for them as a chapter. These tables get folded probably 3 times a week and moved somewhere else, and they're amazing.
But that's great. That was the whole purpose of what we did. So, folks, we made sure the tables had casters. They have a flip-top capability, and they can be rolled away. Nobody has to be Hercules and lifted up and hurt themselves. And I preach the value of those features all day long.
Definitely.
All day long. So, what's next for you, Nikki? In the volunteer world? Are we done with volunteering? What's coming?
I still have some time left on this board, and I will probably stay involved in some form or fashion. Don't think I'll ever quite give up volunteering. Don't know that I necessarily want to take on as big of a role as I have had at the director level in the past.
That's fair.
And I say that now, that may change in a couple of years. Who
Famous
knows?
last words.
Famous last words. Took on a little small project on the housing side with another group, with another board. But we'll just keep on trucking along on this house corporation and maybe go back to the advising side. I don't know. I kind of love working with these college women. They've kind of given me that little bit of a feeling that I've missed a little bit, just being on the housing side. But who knows?
Yeah. Well, that remains to be seen, I suppose.
It does.
But you'll never give up that girl time, it sounds like.
Never give up that girl time. No.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on and for talking about your experience. It was always, like I said, it's always great to talk with you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely be reaching out probably. It may be a new house, but there's still little things we want to do in the next couple of years. So
let us know. We'll keep zhuzhing it up.
That's right.
Nikki, if people want to reach out to you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. So I think as we all are, we're all connected to our phones these days, and that email dings all the time. I'm happy for anyone to reach out to me. It's njohnsondg, like Delta Gamma, @gmail.com. And then, I'd love for women to follow our chapter's social media, UK Delta Gamma on Instagram.
Yeah.
And every now and then you'll catch some great pictures of them in the house.
Oh, that's great. And we will have all of that contact information in the show notes from today's episode. Thanks so much, Nikki.
Thanks, Liz.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. A well-stocked coffee station is a sisterhood essential. Whether it's a corner of the night kitchen where you've set up a Keurig, or if it's a full-on custom built-in coffee bar, having an organized spot with mugs, syrups, and extra K-cups make mornings go smoother and keeps the caffeine-fueled chaos under control. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.